Hi, I'm Neil. I want to review the entire personal power set, point by point. And that means I'm going to give you the tools that Tony gives you, and I'm going to give you my thoughts now that it's all these years later. And I've heard this program a bunch of times, I've used these tools, and I want to share with you some of what these tools are in a very short way. You can get kind of a sense of them. Some of you have heard the program and you just want to get a sense of what other people think about it, and some of you just can't stand Tony, but you want to learn these tools, and maybe I can help you out with that. No copyright intended. Please don't sue me. I'm just trying to review this. This is more about my thoughts than it is about giving you these tools. So we're in this one for the long haul. I'm going to be covering programs 1 and 2 here. I think I'm going to do 2 programs per episode, and I bet I can knock these out about once a week if I really stay on it, but I'm busy, so we'll see. First thing we need to cover is that there's Personal Power 1 and there's Personal Power 2. Why? I don't know. It originally came out in cassette, so later on there's Personal Power 2. I think there's 1 or 2 sentences that are edited in awkwardly. You can hear the little shift in the audio, but it's literally the same recording. And the recording I'm listening to right now, there's little parts edited in that say, when Tony says cassette flips over, what he really means is that you're listening to a CD or an MP3, and so they added that in. But it's the same one. Don't think you have to listen to both of them. It's the same thing twice. I wanted to very briefly go over some of the terms I'm going to be using, like tools. My whole channel is based around sharing psychological tools with you, something that you can use today. And if you can't do something today to improve your life, then I don't share it. But a lot of these programs, they like to mess around. Congratulations, get excited. This is going to be so wonderful. And I wish people did not do that. And it seems to be at the beginning of every program. So there's no tools for the first 2 programs. This whole one is not going to have any tools. And if you're only listening to this for the tools, go ahead and skip to the next one. Sorry. What we do have is we have concepts and advice. So tools are something you can use today. A concept is usually your explanation for why your tools are going to work, and these concepts often translate to multiple tools. So it's good if you can understand some of the concepts ahead of time, and then some of the tools will make more sense. You can use the tools more effectively that way. And then there's advice, and that usually comes in the form of what to not do. Don't call yourself names in your head. Don't have negative self-talk. Why am I such a failure? Successful people don't talk to themselves that way, and there's reasons for it. Now, it's not necessarily helpful for you today, and I'm going to call that one usually the weakest, but I want to give Tony a fair shot, like all the things that he brings up, what he talks about, and what the value is. So all that's going to be covered in this program is going to be the concepts and the advice. I am going to be criticizing the material. I love Tony. I love this program. In fact, most of what this whole episode is me praising how important this program was to me and to other people. The whole reason that I listen to success programs is because this one was so fantastic that I have to keep looking for more. I'm always looking for the next personal power, and I've never found it. There are whole programs on NLP. All the programs on NLP are just garbage. This was the only one. It covers all the best NLP, and after this one, you don't need any other NLP. At least that I found. I'm still looking. Maybe if there's some NLP that's really amazing that isn't covered in this episode, go ahead and leave it down in the fudda mudda ba. I'll take a look at that. But it is a great program. Really great tools. And if you ever listen to Tony Robbins' speeches, he's going to assume that you've heard this. And a lot of his speeches won't make as much sense if you haven't heard all this. And that's a real shame. In fact, a lot of his speeches aren't fantastic even if you have heard this, but it will at least make a lot more sense. This was the first time anyone ever told me that I could be successful even though I'm not as smart as maybe the people I look up to. And I started thinking about that. A lot of the people who are successful, that have pulled themselves up and met all their goals, they're not the smartest people. Then they're not always the hardest working people, but they found ways to make their skill set work for them. And that was a really profound thought for me. I came from poverty and I always felt very powerless. And I was only working my second job at a gas station when I heard this. And I had to walk both ways to my job. I would have a 2-hour shift and I'd walk 1 hour to work and then 1 hour back. So I spent as much time walking to work as I did working. And that was when I heard this program. So I would listen to this on my way down there. And as soon as I finished the program, I felt great. I got myself another job where my boss wasn't so horrible, and it really stuck with me. Everything got better. Now, I happen to think that I'm a wonderful person. I'm very pleased with myself. I've earned my respect, and a lot of it comes from here. Someone else will look at me and they say, "You're not successful, you're not rich." I feel rich. I'm happy with me. So that's where I'm coming from. I'll tell you ahead of time that a lot of the tools that I'm going to be presenting here are not as powerful as Tony seems to make them out to be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people use these tools and they're just like Aladdin's lamp. But for me, a lot of these are about 3% benefit to you. But if you've got 5 tools, that 3%, well, that's a 15% benefit, and that is really huge. The biggest thing is that now you've got something that definitely does help. So when you say, I just don't feel like I can do this, I'm not sure if I'm in the perfect mode, you've got little tools you can use so that you're a little bit bumped up. And you can say, well, I'm better off than I was. I've done all the steps I can take. Now I can move forward. That's what helps for me. I'm very much a skeptic of everything, so this is all coming from a skeptical perspective. Subliminal music. I am skeptical. It's been all these years later, and we've still never found any benefit to subliminal messaging in music. He's had all this opportunity to explain it or to do the research, and all we've found is that there's just a whole bunch of nothing. He doesn't bring it up in his speeches. He never brings it up in his future books. The whole subliminal music thing's just kind of fallen off. And if you don't know, you're supposed to listen to the speeches for 5 days a week, and then on the weekend you'll listen to the music, which has all the subliminal music. I would skip it. It's kind of neat that there's the traffic sounds, and that's kind of soothing, and one of the songs is like mildly good, but it really is just easy listening. It's not the sort of thing I would listen to on the radio in order to relax. There's better things to listen to. This is also probably the first time that I heard a success program that doesn't sound radically out of touch. He covers things like trauma or really bad childhoods where you feel dragged down by the terrible things that have happened in your life. And at the time, back in the 90s, early 2000s, a lot of people were talking about personal success, but it always felt like it had to be appropriate for school and appropriate for work. No cussing, no talk about really bad things. And, we don't live in that world. We live in a world where if you talk to people about what's holding you back, they're often going to say, well, I was raped, or my parents beat me, my dad was a drunk. And this is the first time someone that gets addressed. He can't fix the problem, but he can address how to get over these kinds of humps, how to get through the bad thoughts and start thinking better. And everyone, of course, copies him, because just like with the memory programs, everyone's using kind of the same techniques. They might explain them more a little differently, but it's the same stuff. And I think that Tony explained it better than the other guys, which is weird because I don't think he's like super charming. I think he's just as annoying as everyone else does, but I still have to admit that whenever I think about these techniques, I remember his explanations first. He does a better job of it. Sorry. Okay, so with all the preface out of the way and knowing what we're doing, we're going to get down to our first concept. Normally I'll do the tools first, but there's no tools. So we're skipping ahead to the first concept, which is success through failure. And anyone who's heard a lot of success programs is familiar with this. There is no real such thing as failure. You want to move forward and fail as much as possible so that you can learn what you're doing. You're chipping away at all the bad rock to review the statue underneath. So every time you do something, you're going to be unsuccessful, and then you find out why you're unsuccessful and you do it again to learn the other way. So this is supposed to take away a bunch of your excuses. Do it now is a major part of the program. He always gives you homework and makes sure that you start doing a thing. So you turn off the program, and a lot of it is like pick up the phone, make that phone call, start that first step. And this was the first time I started thinking about really big goals. Like if you want to be an astronaut, well, the first thing you have to do is you pick up the phone and you call NASA and you say, how do I become an astronaut? And the other person thinks you're a complete idiot and it's like, just go to college, you fool. And so you call up the college and you say, hey, I want to be an astronaut. What do I have to do? And the person thinks you're an idiot. It's like, oh, you have to take astronomy, you fool. And you have to find out about how to get your finances and how to get your books. And you go to the astronomy class and it gives you a mountain of homework. But even though this goal is so very high, people do become astronauts. And if you ask them how they do it, first thing they did, pick up the phone, call NASA, get the information. Somehow they had to learn this stuff. And as long as you make all these steps every day and you work your way up, you will become successful. And it had never occurred to me that way. Maybe it occurred to you. It didn't occur to me. To me, it was profound. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. He talks a lot about don't get caught up in your day-to-day life. All these people are saying, I just got busy. And so, I had to go to work. I had to feed the kids. And then life just passed me by. And he always says you need to stop doing that. You need to break out of that and start doing more. And it is easy. He's right. Especially when you work for a low wage and you don't have a lot of fun you can go out and do with. You don't want to get stuck just being where you are. You have to find ways to break out and move forwards. And I remember that all the time because I'll kind of look at my life and say, what have I improved? And sometimes it's nothing. It's nothing for a long time. I'm just waiting for the big paycheck. I'm waiting for the next big opportunity. And that's a terrible way to live, just waiting for success to happen to you. If you make success happen, success will happen. If you're a hard enough worker, you bend the rules to you. And that's a much better way to think about these things. Next concept. Here's the important one, the one he spends the most time on, and for a good reason. That your brain is always moving towards pleasure and always moving away from pain. Now, I'm going to put my own special exemption in here that he doesn't mention. That gets a little bit more complicated when you're talking about routines and addictions, because you have to break those routines and break those addictions and understand what those things are and how they're working against you. But barring all of that, your brain is always working in such a way that it's recognizing when bad things are happening and moving away from it, even if you're not thinking about it. I always remember the study, a little experiment that was done that he didn't bring up, but I read about that. We get 2 decks of cards, and one of them's full of mostly prizes, and one of them's full of mostly like little taxes that take your prizes away. And you're supposed to pick the cards out at random. And after just a few cards, like 5 or 6, they figure out that deck is toxic and that one's the winner. And they always go for that one because your brain is making these connections. So when you start figuring out that there are little connections to everything, your brain's going to just start associating bad with this and good with this. That you have to watch out for it first, so that you're not relating bad things to things that you need to do, and you have to start working towards recognizing the good in all the things that you want to do. And this still feels really cryptic. This feels like kind of spell casting. But this is actually the best tool to program. Most of the tools are based on this one right here. And that's why he spends so much time just explaining the concept without giving you the tools. But here's some good examples. If you ask someone about Geico, what is Geico? Well, if they don't own a TV, they're going to tell you it's this massive corporation that lobbies Congress to bend the rules so that their, car insurance can squeeze every last dollar out of people. And they have these vicious lawyers that will corrupt the judiciary system to make sure that they never have to pay out money and they always get as much money coming as they possibly can. That's Geico. But if you own a TV, well, Geico is this really cute lizard. They have the funnest commercials. They've got the caveman. They've got the speed racer. They got Tony Little on the machine. They've got the most fun advertising commercials in the world that have absolutely nothing to do with car insurance ever, because people don't even want to think about car insurance. Most car insurance is more or less the same, but Geico has character, and it shouldn't, because it's just car insurance. But they're changing your neuro associations. They make you kind of trust them. They make you kind of associate all these positive feelings to them that they really don't deserve, except for through their advertising. He brings up Michael Jackson singing the song about Pepsi, and he doesn't even drink Pepsi, but they paid him a fortune to sing the Pepsi song. And by the way, Tony got it wrong, because Michael Jackson, as you might know, sang about Coke. So people have all these positive associations with Michael Jackson, at least at the time when he made the ad. And it had nothing to do with, these two things shouldn't have anything to do with each other. But he makes just them being together, your brain links them. And just being aware of this link is really what he's trying to get to, because this is where the tools are going to come in. And you're probably saying, oh, just give me the tool. I'll give you the tool next time, because I want to tell you what he's saying. Now, I'm going to be closing out here with the homework assignment that he gives. And what he says to do is to think about a couple of simple goals that you can do right away. Not your become an astronaut goals, but more like call your mother goals or clean your room. But this time what you want to do is to write down all of the positive thoughts that you have attached to it. What are the positive emotions that are, that you want to have with this goal? And what are the negative emotions you have that have been keeping you from this goal? And I've heard the program a bunch of times, but it never really stuck with me, that we need to be prepared. We need to understand that there are negative emotions that are holding us back, and we need to recognize them ahead of time. They're not going to go away. We need to embrace that these things exist so that we can overcome them. And a lot of the ways we overcome them are coming later. But just recognizing that, gosh, I don't want to clean my room because that's so much time away, because I'm going to look at those old files that I've been putting off, and I've got all that laundry that I'm never going to wear that's been piled up, and that laundry makes me depressed. Recognizing why exactly you don't want to do these things, and then you can win the argument in your head ahead of time. I need to do this because I need a clean room. It's not going to get done if I don't do this. There's no way to have a clean room except for to clean it. It's only going to take this much time. Win the argument, get it done. And that really is better than I ever gave him credit for in the past. I'm going to be giving that one more thought. So that's all that I really have for you today. If I missed anything that you thought was important, go ahead and leave a message down in the fudda mudda buh. If you think that I was wrong about something, you can tell me about that too in a respectful manner. And yeah, feel good, because whatever your goals are, it's much easier if you feel good.